The Israel we knew died on October the 7th. Thus wrote David Horowitz in the Times of Israel. But was he right? The answer is very simple. Yes and no. Yes, Israel and the world at large remain deeply and irreversibly scarred by the atrocities. 2 months on, these vile acts continue to confound and defy description. Yes, geopolitical forces and the politics of the Middle East and Israel itself continue to undermine the path to a lasting peace. Yes, the divisions and fears within Israel gape wider than ever. Yes, Israelis' previously unshakable confidence in their security has been shattered, replaced by a mixture of anger, despair, and fear, feelings which persist both inside and across communities. A couple of weeks ago, I was privileged to meet some of the parents and relatives of the hostages and victims of the massacre on Kibbutz Kfar Aza. Absorbing the utter grief of two mothers who then, 6 weeks on, still knew nothing and still don't know anything of the fate of their hostage sons, Almog Meir and Yotam Chaim, was unbearable. One mother showed us a video released by Hamas of her 21-year-old son being brutally beaten by his evil captors. How she was able to relive that over and over again was extraordinary and painful to watch as she communicated her grief. Empathy and sympathy were completely inadequate emotions that afternoon. Everyone left that meeting grievously scarred. It was and remains dark, disorienting, despairing, and polarizing. No prior events in Israel, I think, have seized our souls quite like the events of 7th of October. We've all read a lot, but actually I urge you, if you can, to read Rob's article in yesterday's Telegraph. The graphic and dark descriptions from his discussions with Ophir Tor, guest at our table, need no elaboration, and more on that shortly. But, and it's a big but, I do dispute Horowitz's assertion. Since the early hours of 7th of October, rays of light have pierced the suffocating black smoke of conflict and the choking dust thrown up by vocal, angry, polarized opinions on both sides of the lines, drawn ever deeper in the sand by Hamas's terrorism. These rays of sunlight, of human warmth, of self-sacrifice and courage emerged in many forms. First, the bravery, altruism, and self-sacrifice of volunteers in the field. Madha staff and trained volunteers, such as those Madha heroes here tonight, Adi, Ophir, Sharon, and Shunit, from whom you'll hear later this evening. We hold our hands and hearts out to you and your colleagues. Secondly, the strength of the humanitarian response from Madha supporters old and new around the globe, many of whom are in this room tonight. Thirdly, the immediate coagulation of the blood of Israel into a single corpuscle of people who mobilized as a nation in a heartbeat, selflessly and without hesitation. I don't know of a single Israeli who has not volunteered in some meaningful way to help the nation, from rehousing displaced citizens from the south and the north, to picking fruit in the fields, from delivering much-needed military equipment, to rushing selflessly to war, from cooking soldiers' meals in the field to giving blood. The wounds of pre-7th of October political battles seem to close up in an instant, exemplified by the brothers and sisters in arms movement, Achim Lanashek, transforming instantly from a protest movement into a supremely effective and logistics relief organization, and perhaps, who knows, a political force for good. We, as a board of trustees, have immense pride in both the team here and in the efforts of our friends and colleagues overseas. So far, in the UK alone, we've raised approaching £13 million to fund everything from bandages to oxygen masks, blood bags to tourniquets, MICUs to armoured ambulances. We're so very proud of everyone, all of you in this room. But we're especially proud of those in the field, many of whom you'll have seen in various videos, such as the amazing MDA team from the Bedouin city of Rahat, for example, which we refurbished towards the end of last year, whose residents, two of whose residents remain kidnapped in Gaza. And indeed, all serving MDA staff, some of whom you'll see and hear from shortly. But even if it didn't die on 7th of October, what was knocked unconscious was the progress we were making on a strategy to bring MDA's humanitarian aid to even more innocent human beings who were caught up in the regional catastrophes which have plagued Israel and its neighbors for decades. Working with our friends in the Jordanian Red Crescent, with their massive and relentless humanitarian disasters in their own country. Sending chemo drugs to help Palestinian child cancer patients in Gaza, an initiative funded by Jewish donors here. Building new MDA stations in the under-resourced Arab and other communities in Israel. Planning a new regional paramedic facility, training facility in Ramla, sharing MDA's knowledge and technical excellence with its old and new Abraham Accord partners and friends in the region. The list goes on. My friends, we cannot allow Hamas, Hezbollah, or any other state enemies to defeat our strategy for peace through humanitarian action. We cannot allow our dark anger to enhance the illusion that sheer force will help us out of this mess. We cannot allow our insecurities to dominate our relationships with our fellow Israelis in the diverse communities which are woven into the very fabric of Magen David Adom. We cannot allow ourselves to be cowed into silence or inaction by the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel hatred thrown daily in our faces, in the press, on the streets, or on college campuses. We must instead work for peace within Israel's diverse communities and across its borders, through sharing what MDA stands for, saving lives. Saving more lives by sharing best-in-class emergency first response knowledge and practice, state-of-the-art healthcare technology, including best-in-class blood sciences, and this is important too, promoting the thought leadership of MDA's fabulous ambassadors, from the likes of Professor Elad Shinar, head of blood sciences and the inspiration behind the Ramla Blood Center, to Daniel and Rob, from our Christian friends of MDA, from Eli Bin to every MDA staff member and volunteer from every community in Israel and beyond. Saving lives. That's why we're here this evening as supporters for MDA, because every life matters, every life. I recently received, as did Daniel, a heart-stirring message from our dear friend and partner, who many of you have met, Dr. Mohammed Al-Hadid, president of the Jordanian Red Crescent, and the man responsible for getting MDA admitted to the International Red Cross Federation. He expressed immediately his heartfelt shock at the events of 7th October, but reaffirmed his faith in our joint humanitarian mission. And I quote, "We must, as partners, remain undeterred in our joint mission to save lives," he affirmed. He and his colleagues will always be our friends and partners in saving lives. When the dust of war settles and the red mist of anger dissipates, we must work with our Red Cross Federation partners to build a stronger presence in the region. Daniel and I will be in Geneva next week with Dr. Al-Hadid and his ICRC colleagues working towards this very end. As you heard from Rob, MDA represents the very beacon which defines modern Zionism: diversity, humanity, and outreach into every part of the nation and the world where we can play a role in alleviating suffering, whether it takes the form of coming immediately and unconditionally to the aid of its own citizens or those of other nations beset by war, natural disaster, or the impact of climate change or everyday human disasters. I am extremely proud to chair MDA UK because of who we are and what we represent. Our humanitarian mission is the most effective weapon against rising anti-Semitism, atrocity denial, and anti-Israel invective. MDA's work transcends politics and bridges divisions, working instead towards a peaceful and more socially just Israel. We must remain proud of Israel, our homeland, which we share with others and in which we help all others, regardless of ethnicity or religion. And we must remember what Rob reiterated in his Telegraph article yesterday, and I quote, Magen David Adom shares blood between Jews and Palestinians, and it's impossible to think of a more, not just poetic, but profound and clear illustration of a shared humanity than sharing blood. And I would add to this the sharing of mother's milk from the Mother Milk Bank in Ramla. And their milk and blood, you have the strongest possible metaphor for the sanctity of life. We must fight passionately for the values which MDA represents. We can't allow the propaganda, by whomever and however it's promulgated, to defeat the goodness which defines the people of Israel, which MDA represents and reflects. We must redouble our efforts to invest in Israel and rebuild within and across communities and borders with your help. I want to thank you all on behalf of the entire MDA UK board and team, brilliantly led by Daniel, not just for your incredible generosity, but for the continuing advocacy for a strong and sustainable Israel through Magen David Adom. Finally, I want to leave you with the words of one of the Kfar Aza relatives whom I met, Doron Libstein, who lost four close members of his family on 7th of October. He left us with a plea, not for revenge, but rather with a wish that we become, as he put it, ambassadors for light, love, and humanity. Those brave and grieving mothers, Orit Meir and Irit Chaim, had clearly lost their confidence and faith and had become detached from their past life. But each of them made it very clear to us that none of them would surrender their humanity. Magen David Adom stands for humanity and courage. It's the strongest possible beacon of light which guides us, illuminating the essence of Jewish values and what our Israel stands for, today and tomorrow. Am Yisrael Chai.